Alright, we got finally getting around to this hum issue that's on my Tron. So I took off the, that's annoying, right? I'm looking here. Let me turn that off real quick. I'm looking here and it definitely, I have a check mark. I remember checking that capacitor and it tested out okay. That's usually the capacitor that's bad down there. What is that? C101. But it is original. I might go ahead and just replace it and see what we get. Also can check for the AC voltage on these large capacitors here, which is also for the 5 volt and 12 volt regulated lines. So yeah, we'll do that and then okay. I've been not messing with this too long, but long enough to realize that I already did a video on supposedly fixing this board, replacing this cap right here, both the 5 volt and the 12 volt line cap, and I now believe that that video is incorrect. That didn't actually fix my problem. So because I have hum coming back again. So one of the things, I have several boards, MCR boards, and I swapped out a different power supply board and the hum went away. So I know the issue is on the power supply board, or it has to do with the connectors or something on the power supply board. But to test those other boards, I needed to, each of the boards has kind of a separate issue as well, and I'm going to probably address them in short little videos. But real quickly what I did is hooked up my meter to measure 5 volts on that capacitor right there on the MCR stack. So I realized that when I was adjusting the voltage with the 5 volt VR102 right there, when I was adjusting the 5 volt voltage to get it to the proper level, the hum changed with the adjustment of the 5 volts. So that's why I figured I'd just film this real quick. So I'm going to power it on, and I'm using a different meter here. So I'm going to have to use my light there. Okay, so we got 0, so we're going to turn it on. You hear the hum, and now I'm going to adjust this right here, and you can see it, you can hear it change a little bit as I go down in voltage. If I go up in voltage, it gets louder. So we know that the voltage, it definitely has to do with the hum definitely has to do most likely with the 5 volt line is what I would expect. But anyway, I just wanted to show that real quick, and then let's figure out what's wrong with this. Okay, so here's the board. This is the one with the hum, and I already have everything kind of marked on it to measure voltage and stuff. But it's very perplexing. But one thing that always bothered me, and I did address this and check continuity on all this, is that this connector was pretty badly damaged. And there's like a little jumper wire here, etc., that's really thin and stuff. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and replace. I think I have some replacement connectors. The other thing is I can see on the one that's especially bad, the pins inside there on a couple of them are at like different heights and everything, so it's almost like it's not seated potentially all the way. So I'm just going to remove at least this connector, or maybe both. I might just do both if I have them, and clean up all of that, make sure everything's really good there, and fix it up, and then we'll test it after that. I tested these caps, and they're obviously relatively new, so I don't believe this is a capacitor issue. So I tested them both with ESR as well as with a multimeter for capacitance, so measuring the microfarad. So all right, so I had actually this is an old Bob Roberts repair kit for 90412, which is the power supply that we have here, and I never used the connectors for the power supply that I probably did a while back, so I'm actually, going to use it today. So okay, you can tell that this thing came out like crap. Basically, there's 2 lifted pads at least, or 3 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. I only see 2 here, so who knows? Sorry, I only see 2 on the bottom of this. So who knows if those pads were damaged before when somebody tried to remove this thing, because the work looked terrible. And then on the other side, equally as bad. We got 1, 2, 3 pads. Now those aren't for continuity or anything with anything, but they're just to hold the kind of a pin to give you something to flow solder onto. The other ones don't look great either, so definitely a pain in the butt to get that connector out, and we'll do the best we can to get it back in and verify everything. Okay, not probably the greatest through-hole repair there, but I do have some conductive tape that I could just cut into little squares. Again, this isn't to fix a trace per se, just to kind of have solder flow through to the pin. I've done it not as extensively as this much damage, but I've done it before and it's worked out okay. So we'll see. Hopefully it works out, but this time as well. You just want to make sure that nothing's touching like no solder can potentially bridge a couple pins or anything like that. So we have to be careful about that, measuring it. All right, we'll do the back side and then solder this thing in. Okay, there's the bottom side. Again, not looking great. But I think we should be okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the connector in that I have right here. Solder that bad boy. I did have to put that jumper back in place. There's 3 pins that I had to, just verify. One of them actually went to the 12 volt, let's see. Yeah, I think the 12 volt side of this capacitor over here that was missing one of the pads. So I'm wondering, who knows, because, we'll put it in the cabinet and find out. But I mean, there definitely could have been some connectivity issues between this J5 connector and I think at least a 12 volt, and I don't know what goes to L101. I'd have to double check. I doubt it has something to do with the sound, but anyway, okay, we'll be right back. I put the board back in and without the PCB connected, and I wasn't getting any power, and so I figured something was going on in here, and it kind of makes sense what we were seeing before. I think I know what the problem was. So there was probably the ground on the J5 connector. Is that J5? Yeah, J5. The ground, and I didn't catch this before I started messing with it, but the J5 ground connection wasn't very good. So I think that this probably ground was not connected. And then after I reflowed it, I didn't have connectivity from J4 ground to J5 and then ultimately over to C106. So the ground there from C106 to J5 to J4 was severed, and it relies on the connectors themselves to establish that. I tested everything else. It looks okay as best I can tell. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the cabinet and try again. Okay, I have the game is running and everything. I adjusted the voltage by hooking up onto that capacitor. One of the things is I probably have a lot of loss in the circuit because I have my voltage cranked. I'm surprised the game's actually running, but the maximum I can get is 4.6. And if I test, actually I'll come right back and show you what it is when I test it as it is right from the power supply board. Yeah, so I have 5.6 volts, so it's pretty much maxed out at the power supply board. So either the connectors aren't the greatest. I'm going to try a different power supply board just to see if I can get, if it's any better, but it's probably through the cables, and connectors probably need to be cleaned, etc. So anyway, that is not good to have almost a full volt lost between your power supply board and your PCB. So going to do some more investigating, but the hum is fixed and the power supply board works. So I think the issue was that we had some grounds were not connected, and so yeah, like a floating ground or something that was causing that hum, and it was probably intermittent because of the just wiggling the connectors. Actually, you can hear some static there even now. So be right back. I don't know if this power supply board is going to survive here. Well, I did I reflowed, made sure I reflowed solder everywhere. I know it's difficult to see. I did also spray some deoxit on the connectors, and you can tell that definitely helped because I can wiggle the connectors around without creating static in the speakers and stuff. So I did that to all the connectors. But really, you know, it's still pretty much maxed out. I think I have this PCB set at 4.5 volts, which I'm surprised it's actually running. But I'm going to try some different power supply boards. So I'm done with the video for this power supply board. I have two other power supply boards that have, I think, different issues. One makes a high-pitched squeal, and I'm interested in figuring out what that is. So I'm just going to use the Tron, since I already have it opened up, to troubleshoot that. And but it does work. So, and it sounds pretty good. So kind of difficult to play through the. I definitely can't play this while holding the camera, but anyway. Tron is back working, which is good. I think we can do better with the power supply and the voltage scenario, but for now I'm going to just leave this power supply alone and start troubleshooting some other power supplies. So thanks for watching. I'm glad I finally figured out what the issue was and got this board working right. I think this one was originally out of my Spy Hunter, so I might actually put it back. I'm not sure. All right. Okay, I lied. Cheers. Not going to give up on this power supply. I took it back out, and I had a hunch that I really, replacing this socket, even though I fixed the problem, the ground problem and the hum problem, I probably introduced potentially some other things that rely on the top side of the J5 connector to provide J4 connectivity, because you can see if you guys can see that. You can see right there that there's several connectors here that are connecting on the top side of the PCB through J5 to get to probably like 5 volts and stuff. So and I think that's why I just had that hunch, so I took it back out, and my diagram is upside down, but it'll make sense. The writing is upside down, but it kind of makes sense. So like this 3 volts here, this pin 3, and I set my meter to continuity. If you can, okay. Pin 3 should be 5 volts. So pin 3, 6, and 5 should all have continuity with each other, and they should also have continuity with pins 4. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, pins 4. Nope, no continuity. And pin 2. And it doesn't have continuity with the 5 volt side of the plus cap as well. We fixed the ground, so we know ground is good. Pin 8, 9, and 10 all have continuity with ground. And pin 11 and 12, which would be this one, should have continuity with pin 9 over here, and it does, so we know that's good. That's pin 11 and 12. Alright, and then obviously it's a little bit harder for pin 14. 15 is the reset circuit. It's disconnected in the cabinet anyway. 13 I'm not worried about. 10 we got 7 and 4 is to the 12 volt common, so that should go to pin 12 over here, and it does. Okay, so I feel pretty good. This is the V battery line. I don't know which one, whatever. We have a battery off the board, so that, oh, but that should be, I probably do need to check that. I have to figure out where that goes. And the 5 volt sense line, I'm not too concerned. It doesn't use, it's not connecting. Really what we're worried about is the 12 volt connections, making sure they're connected between connector J4 and J5, the 5 volt line, which was not connected, and that's why our 5 volt is low. So I'm going to put in another jumper for 5 volts and then come back. So I think I might do some additional checking on anything else with topside connections here. The way I figured this out actually is I was getting ready to put the video together, and I saw that I took a measurement, and my 5 volt measurement was almost 5 volts at the PCB, and so it didn't make sense that I was only getting 4.7 now. So I'm going to put this jumper in, maybe recheck some other pins here just to double check everything, like some of the ones that aren't as obvious, like the reset circuit, you know, the coin counter and stuff like that. So, and then I'll put it back in the board. Be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Let's see here. This thing is murdered now. But one of the things was, actually, let me show you this side first. So I went through and actually just checked every single pin on it and put a little check mark by this sheet here that I have printed out. So we'll go ahead and check our 5 plus 5, 6, and 3 over here to 4 and 2. And so we fixed that. And the other one that didn't have continuity was this, all the other pins checked out fine, but pin 10 right here has a topside connection all the way to field ground, which is over here on, what is that, like J6 pin 1, I think, and J3 pin 1, I think. Yeah, these are field ground. It says coin counter return, I think, or something, so it goes to ground. So that wasn't connected, but rather than running a jumper all the way from here to there, I removed the little pad that I had created, because that pad was preventing solder from actually flowing through the hole to the top side. So I probably could have avoided a lot of this by not using those pads. That pad did not work as I expected. So we ended up having to do a bunch of jumpers. I mean, some of them probably needed to be done anyway because we had a ground issue, and that's why we had hum. But anyway, it looks like crap, but everything's connected correctly, and there's no pins, you know, connected to each other that shouldn't be, those kinds of things. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the cabinet, and let's see what our voltage is. All right, I'm hooked up to the capacitor and got my meter there. I'm going to adjust the 5 volts to kind of the mid-range here because I have the PCB already hooked up. And we'll go ahead and power this on. Alright, much better. I have the capacitor hooked up backwards actually. Let me fix that. I mean, I have my leads hooked up to the capacitor backwards. Alright, 4.7 volts at the PCB, and we're about halfway. So let's go ahead and adjust it up some. There we go. So we can't get more than 4.9, but I'm going to come down to where we're just getting 4.9 right there. and that looks good. And I already did the 12 volt, and the 12 volt line was fine, so I'm gonna leave it alone. And that's it. I'm done with this power supply. Let's see, make sure that everything's still working here. Volume's a little loud, but yep, everything still works. So, okay, now we're done. I'm glad it looks terrible. The repair job is definitely not my best work. I'm actually ashamed to actually publish this, but hey, you know what? It's fixed permanently now, and everything's working good, so we're gonna call it a day. Cheers.